Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Creating Tailwinds Podcast by Flight Path Financial with your hosts, John Urbik and Jared Adams. Join us today as we discuss the power of infinite banking. And here we go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. John and Jared are back with you on our latest podcast, and we've got a lot to talk about in just a little bit of time, so we're going to try to make it concise today. But one of the things that Jared and I spend a lot of time talking to people about is not about spending money, but spending capital, and what the difference between those two things are.
Yes.
Right, Jared? I mean,
yes.
Well, wealthy people don't think about spending money; they think about spending capital, and the difference is maybe something we might talk about, where spending money is, I've got these dollars in my hand and I'm going to spend it. And that money's gone. They're not thinking about the after. We're wealthy people thinking, all right, if I spend this dollar, where's that dollar going?
Yep.
So, and that is a crucial distinction to understand, because when we spend those dollars, if we're not thinking about downstream, not only just a week, 10 days, a year, 5 years, 30 years down the road, we're missing out on thousands and thousands of dollars. And that is the crux of the infinite banking concept. And it's so crucial to understand that one point. If you understand nothing else, understand that what is happening to my dollar when I spend it. And every purchasing decision you make ought to be rooted in that thought process.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that, Jared?
I mean, I think it's spot on. When you talk about every single transaction that carries some cost, is it a financing cost you're paying some other bank, or is it the opportunity cost you've lost? We've talked about that before, but every single transaction has a financing cost. So when you think about it from that respect, who captures that cost? Is it you or is it someone else? And when you think about it from that perspective, it just changes the way you view the entire financial system.
100%. And, we've talked about it before, but the idea that every dollar is an employee.
Yes.
What does that mean? What does that mean to you?
That means that if I think about my landscape, my financial landscape, and I'm the owner, that I need to put all of those dollars to work.
Right.
I need to ensure they're doing a job and that they're doing so according to, the rules, regulations, and plans that have been put in place by the corporation that is my family bank, and that I need to go put them to work. That's what I think of when you say that.
Well, think about the best. If you have a company, your best employee does an outstanding job. He or her does an outstanding job for you, and as soon as they're done with that task, you fire them. Is that something we would do normally? But that's precisely what we're doing with our money. We're taking our most valuable dollars, which are today's dollars, because of inflation is deflating the value, the purchasing power of each dollar we have. So we're taking our richest dollars, spending them without any consideration for what that means down the road.
Yep.
So every dollar is an employee. How would you treat that differently?
I mean, I had an actual instance where you can put some dollars to cents on this recently. Speaking with someone about this on a real life scenario, someone was considering a real estate purchase.
Yes.
That was going to require approximately 20% down. That 20% down equated to about $100,000. Okay, so we're talking a $500,000 property, right? And so in order to get that 20% down, they're going to finance the other 80. But that first 20% down payment, how did they pay for that? Well, and this was a discussion that it even took me a little time to wrap my head around, which was, where did that come from? Because they had investments and other, things that had grown within the market that they could have just cashed those out and paid for the down payment.
Right.
But they also had a policy loan available. And so when we actually sat down and talked about it and got into the weeds a little bit, it was, why would you interrupt what's growing in the market? Like, great job building $100,000 in the market. Why would you interrupt that when you could take the policy loan and keep everything working?
Exactly right.
Right? and you don't have access to that policy loan if you're not truly building, you can call it cash value life insurance, you can call it properly structured dividend paying whole life, however you work into that. We won't talk about IULs. I don't think that's a good idea to talk about that. But you get the idea here, right? Unless you've built that warehouse of wealth, that's not even an option on your table. Right. So when we just walking through that simple scenario of an actual dollars to cents, you're not firing that employee that you talked about. Making $100,000 in the market, wherever that was, great job. Let it keep working. And if you, for whatever reason, needed to fire that employee and pay off that $100,000 policy loan, it's still there doing whatever it was doing before in the market. But you've got this $100,000 policy loan that allowed you to make this purchase and kept everything working.
Great point. And the follow-on to that is another consideration is, what if the market goes down in a given week or month or year? Now you're selling something when you had an opportunity. That thing you buy Apple stock, whatever the company is, they're not going out of business. It will return at some point. So why interrupt that? Just as you said. Too many people, when they look at this business, like, oh, it's insurance. I don't want insurance. This is not about insurance. It's very helpful in that regard. Yep. It does play a role, and I've certainly sold a lot of insurance for the sake of the insurance.
That's right.
But this is a policy. We're using a policy as a strategy tool for preserving the capital while maintaining compounding interest over time.
That's right.
The annuity guys used to say, zero is your hero. Well, what does that mean? Well, all right, what if in a given year you make nothing on your money? Well, the good thing is you haven't lost any money. And we can all look back on the markets or a house or a car purchase, a depreciating asset typically, and it goes down. And now you're starting from a baseline much lower than where you are today. Whereas in life insurance, when you're building a truly IBC constructed contract, you're starting the next year at least where you finished off the year before.
Yep.
Beautiful thing.
Yep.
And you've had access to that money over time. Try doing that with any other investment.
Yep.
You can go do a HELOC. We've talked about that. All the different, you can borrow from your 401k. Very, very expensive. You can go get a HELOC and you borrow $1 and they have leverage on your entire house.
That's right.
You can't even sell your house until you clear that HELOC. Yep. So it's so important to look at what the point of why we're doing this, not that we're doing it.
And the one that I heard recently that I really liked was, when we just talk about the description of the book, it says Becoming Your Own Banker, right? That's the name of the book. It's the Bible for what we do for IBC. And yet, when you think of bank, you think of bank accounts. Right. You think of, some long 9-digit number that ends with, 4 digits that you always remember, right? You think of an account. And yet, this is not an account. This is a contract. And when I heard that recently, that one made so much sense to me. You're not making quote unquote deposits into an account. You're signing on for an agreement into a contract that allows you to put capital in one spot that is safe literally for the rest of your life, because it's, as we said, a whole life policy. With just that reframing, that small little twist in those words made so much sense to me.
You read every disclaimer on the bottom of an investment account, or you hire a professional money manager, everything enters. Future returns are not guaranteed.
That's
not
right.
Guaranteed. You can, or you may, or can, whatever the wording is, lose money. That's not the case here. You're not going to lose money.
Yep.
You're just not. Yep. Unless you forfeit the contract or you lapse the contract, there is no issue with taxability, and that's growing tax-free. So this is a tool that wealthy families use, but there's no reason in the world why people who don't have a lot of means can't begin to build on this same platform.
Yep.
I mean, your ancestors, my ancestors, many of them came here with nothing. Yet here we are today living lives that exceed those of kings of just a few hundred years ago. Yep. So how does that happen? That happens with compounding interest. That happens with controlling the capital. It happens with having a vision which is beyond today and scrambling. And too much of society is instant gratification. this is something you need to be a little bit more circumspect about, and you sit back and say, okay, here I am now. I'm going to spend this dollar. What does that do to that dollar 30 years down the road?
Yep.
It's gone if you just go buy something, right? So wealthy families, and I know you've done a couple podcasts on this, but think generationally. It's so important. They have money not because they don't spend it, but because they control the economic environment, the ecosystem of that money that they control. That's what infinite banking does for you and your family. Don't think about rates of return. Think about control of capital and all the money you're not paying in interest to somebody else. And it's insidious. It's below the surface oftentimes, and people aren't looking at it. And it's certainly not advertised.
That's
because they don't want you to know this.
That's
you and I know very, very well the cost of those systems, what we are not controlling.
Well, and I don't mean to pick you apart here, but I want to rebuttal what someone might say when they hear that. Don't think about rates of return. How could I not think about rates of return? Okay, I agree with you. Yes, you should consider rates of return. However, when you're considering rates of return, if you make 6, 8, 10% on your investments, what does that matter if you're losing 34.5% of every dollar out the front door to a financing cost? You can make 6, 8, 15%. You still haven't recouped what you've lost in the finance cost. So we're not saying disregard rate of returns. We're not saying never think about it. We're saying until you recapture that first 34.5%, that other 6, 8, 15% doesn't matter, right? So I know you meant that when you're talking about that, but I think that's an important point to add when you say, don't ever consider rates of return. Well, we're saying don't consider it first, right?
Yeah, I mean, but this system is not about rates of return. It's about capturing the interest that you're paying to somebody else.
Exactly.
People think, I can do 8%. There are big names out there talking, buy term, invest the difference. You're going to get 8% forever on your money. Nonsense. Because they talk about their 4% rule, which doesn't hold up to sequence of returns, which is another discussion we could have. It doesn't hold up to a market downturn when you need capital in the short term. It doesn't hold up to taxation. It doesn't hold up to money management fees, which are embedded into all of this stuff. The further you are from your money, the more people you are paying, whether you like it or not. It just doesn't show up as a number on the bottom line. It's all embedded on that rate of return. So if you're going to get an 8% rate of return in a given year in the market, especially if it's in a qualified plan, for instance, you've got to pay taxes on that when it comes out. You've got internal management fees, which 1.5% on you put pick a number, whatever you put away per year, you're going to reduce that by 30-40% over 30 years.
Yep.
People don't realize that.
That's exactly
but if you control that capital and you can reduce the interest expense on the monies you're outlaying now you're not thinking about it as a transaction. You're thinking in generational wealth. I'm going to control this money.
That's exactly
Huge difference.
Big difference. Yep, totally agree. And one other point you mentioned that it is an insurance contract, right? There is a death benefit that will be received at some day. Sometimes I hear from folks, they say, I don't need that. I don't want to be worth more alive than I am dead, or I don't want to be worth more dead than I am alive.
That's an emotional argument, though.
What's that?
That's an emotional argument. That's not math. You can show me the math behind it.
And exactly. And there's 2 points I would argue on that. One, I would say, first, the insurance company is not going to cover you for more than you're worth. You may see a number on a paper and go, well, I only paid, $100,000 over the course of 5 years for that policy. They're going to pay me out $1 million. That's worth more than I'm worth. Well, they're including what you would have made in a lifetime economic value when they look 10, 20, 30 years down the road. So they're never going to insure you for more than you're worth. So we can start there with that one. Point 2 would be, some folks say, well, I have no need for that death benefit. I have no one I want to pass it on to. You don't get excited about anything. You don't get excited about your local church, about a local foundation, about a local nonprofit. You don't get excited about anything. Okay, well then maybe IBC is not for you. But if you get excited about anything, why would it not be so cool for them to name a building after you because you wrote them a check for $3 million in 30 years? I guess I can't view that as anything other than than myopic, right? If you, everybody's excited about something. I know I always get excited about a variety of opportunities.
Right.
So I guess that's 2 points on something on that topic.
Well, people buy things, people invest, people allocate their resources according to their desires and needs, right?
Yes.
And
Yep.
when they understand that this is not about life insurance, life insurance definitely has its place. And for
Yes.
the person who says, I don't need life insurance, I don't want life insurance, okay, fine. I've got nobody to leave it to. Well, would you like to have more money while you're living? Would you like
Yes.
to have more access to capital? Would you like to be able to make choices that you would not otherwise be able to make in 10 years just because you did this?
That's right.
And usually it's an overwhelming yes. I had a guy that I flew with not long ago, and we were talking about, this was a little bit different subject, but it was about long-term care. And he had millions of dollars in his investments, and he showed them to me. And he says, look, I'm going to just self-finance all this. I said, okay, you're going to self-finance it. Great, you got the money to do it, because right now, nationally, $70,000 a year for long-term care. And, well, let's see, what if you get Alzheimer's? That could knock on the door of $200,000 a year. A lot of money. This
Yep.
guy could afford it. Okay, well, let me ask you this. I'll just call him Jim. That wasn't his name, but I'll just say, hey, so Jim, you've got the money to do it. Great. How do you feel about paying an extra 40 grand for that same service? He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, that's the tax consequence of doing it your way. If it was inside of a structured product that I'm telling you about, that's tax-free money. It comes
right.
out tax-free. In this
That's
case, it was a long-term care policy that was not a traditional, it was an asset care plan. But he's like, oh, okay. So people don't know what they don't know. And our job is out to advocate for these better solutions. Our job is out there to advocate for the individual and put ourselves in their shoes. And every person is different. I get clients who say, bring me an illustration. I'm not going to bring you an illustration because there's 10,000 different options there that could be. I need to know who you are, what you want, where you want to go.
That's right.
What your assets are, what your liabilities are. We need to do a deep dive into you so I can get a better feel of helping you rather than just giving you a boom. I can go online and, oh, this is the cheapest product. This is what I want. Boom, print, zoom, let's go.
Yep.
No, that's not what we do.
Or who was it that said that, it's not what you know, it's what you think is so and think is
Mark
true,
Twain.
and just ain't so. Mark Twain, is that what it was?
Mark Twain said it. Yes,
Yep.
he had a lot of good ones. He's also the same one who said, I believe that if you want to make $1 million, start out with 2 or something greater than $1 million. I forgot what it was, but it's a mindset. This whole process, and it is a process. And you've talked about this. I've heard you on your own feeds out there.
Yep.
It's so true. It's a mindset. It's not a transaction. It's not a thing. It is a process of how we cash flow our money. The mindset.
I mean, Nelson would tell you it's an exercise in imagination. Of one of the things that it is, it's an exercise in imagination, of which the opportunities or ideas are truly infinite.
It's the mindset can't be overstated of how important that is.
Sure.
And we live in a fast-paced world. We're in a very dynamic financial situation. Markets here, markets there. This is up, this is down. We've got inflation from money printing. We're wondering about jobs. We're wondering about family members who are going through difficult times. We live in a really crazy time. And it's nice just to be able to step back from all of that, from all the insanity that's out there, and say, you know what? I have peace right here. This isn't going to be a rocket shot to the moon. This is going to be a nice financial foundation, a part of a good financial plan that's going to place me in a position of strength and of control when things aren't going my way. And I can speak from personal experience that I have used this for those very things in my life, and thank goodness I had it.
That's right.
And so that's probably another reason I'm so passionate about it, because I know it works. I've lived it. And so for those that might be interested in learning more about this, Jared, you can contact Jared. Jared, give him your contact information.
Jared at green.wealth.com. We'll flash that along the bottom of the page here that's in the video.
Or you can contact me, John Urbik, at flightpathfinancial.com. I'm at john@flightpathfinancial.com.
That's right.
Also, Jared and I both have Candly links that I think you can put at the bottom, Jared,
Yep.
of the thing.
That's it.
So, closing challenge, and I'll let you get the final word here, Jared, but the closing challenge, I would say, for people who are listening to this, don't ask yourself whether you can afford something. Ask yourself a different question. Is there a way to buy this without permanently having that money leave your hands forever? Think about that.
Love that.
Because there is.
I love that. Now, I would close in saying that the idea of hiring an employee and then firing them just when they get up and running and they're your most efficient employee, that visual to me resonates so well. I love that. So thanks for bringing that in and applying that.
Well, happy to. Jared, it's always great to get together with you. Thanks for putting this together.
Yes, sir.
And we'll look forward to the next one. All right, my friend?
Thanks, John. Have a great day. We'll talk soon.
You too, Jared. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone. We'd like to thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Creating Tailwinds podcast with your hosts, John and Jared. As always, we welcome your questions and critiques. You can reach us through the Contact Us tab at flightpathfinancial.com. Remember, it's all about how you think. As Nelson Nash has said about infinite banking, give it your close attention, and it can make a radical improvement in your financial future.